Donald Trump is a narcissist and he's an egomaniac.
This is the face of a 61-year-old woman. I am proud of every year and every wrinkle.
They're bringing crime. They're rapists. I will build a great, great wall.
And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors.
And that was a compilation of advertisements and speeches aimed at attacking presidential candidate Donald Trump. And it's a great place to bring in our roundtable, I think, on this Monday.
It certainly is. Joining us now, President for Citizens for Self-Governance, attorney Mark Meckler, and Democratic media strategist Franco Ripple. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, we've seen this progression kind of take place here.
Yeah.
Donald Trump seems like he can shake off anything almost, but now there seems to be a concerted effort from a number of candidates and some PACs as well, taking on the Donald directly, including the Club for Growth president, David McIntosh. He released this letter, and I'm quoting it here. Donald Trump is the worst Republican candidate on economic issues, saying, quote, short of Bernie Sanders, he may be the most liberal candidate. Mark, is he the worst Republican candidate in the field? Is it fair to criticize Trump in this way?
Well, I think the problem though with McIntosh's statement is what he's doing is he's criticizing the base. The grassroots clearly support Donald Trump, whether McIntosh likes it. He's supposed to support grassroots politics, so he's going against his own base, may affect his own donations. Trump is resonating with the American people, and McIntosh has to deal with that.
Last week on Newsmax Prime right here on Newsmax TV, Ronald Reagan's son, Michael Reagan, also made a comparison between Trump and his father. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
My father would be appalled by what's going on with this campaign and the name-calling that's going on and what Donald is saying about all those other players up there.
Franco, what do you see in the comparisons between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan?
Well, it's a strange comparison. And yes, Donald, I think Ronald Reagan would be rolling in his grave, as it were, because Donald Trump has done nothing in this campaign but violate Reagan's rules, speak no ill of other Republicans. But I'm not sure there's really any comparison because, you know, for one thing, in Ronald Reagan, you had someone who was willing to compromise. You had a Democratic Speaker of the House. You had lots of Democrats in Congress. He was willing to compromise on things like tax increases when they were needed. I think in Donald Trump, you see someone who, despite his background as a liberal Democrat, you don't really get any sense that he'd be willing to play ball with anyone but himself.
But you know, you just brought up a point because you said the play ball, like he was a liberal Democrat. That it seems to be the big thing that Trump brings up. Well, yeah, I was kind of liberal.
But when you have a guy
issues, but remember, Reagan was a Democrat and he became a Republican. That seems to be the only thing I really hear.
But Mark, when you have a guy like Michael Reagan saying that Donald Trump is the least like Reagan in that field, you have to give that, that holds some water.
I think he's entirely accurate. Unfortunately, right now, based on the polling and all the trends we're seeing and Trump's ability to slough off any kind of controversy that comes his way and actually to turn it to his benefit, it's not relevant. It doesn't matter. Unfortunately, to the voters from Reagan's perspective, it just doesn't matter. The Trump train just keeps rolling regardless of when anybody throws at him. Now they're going to try and throw more at him, but he's told people up front what his history is. He's not tried to hide any of it. Unlike a lot of these candidates, he's not tried to run away from his past statements. He says, these are the things I said, and this is what I believe now. I think that's why he's resonating with the American public.
There is a little bit of evidence that things are slowing down for the Trump campaign. We monitor who rises and who falls the most in the polls. The past 2 weeks, it's been Dr. Ben Carson. Also, recently, Trump got into this Twitter battle with New York Governor George Pataki, who's also in the race, but it got pretty heated. They were trading jabs on Twitter. And my question is, if Donald Trump is really the front runner, why would he, he said he doesn't comment on folks who are criticizing him who don't register in the polls.
Right.
And here he is doing that. George Pataki says he's not going to vote for Donald Trump. He is unfit to be president. And this is what Donald Trump said in return, if we could put that up on the screen. Why is someone like George Pataki, who did a terrible job as governor of New York and registered 0 in the polls, allowed on the debate stage? Well, he's responding, doing something that he wouldn't say he was going to do. And you listen to the other comments, the things he said about Ben Carson, things he said about Carly Fiorina. There may be some evidence, Mark, that the wheels are coming off a little bit.
Well, the evidence are not reflected in the polls. His poll numbers continue to rise. He's leading in Iowa. He's leading in New Hampshire. He's leading in the South. He still draws to his events more than any other candidate. Frankly, it seems like more than all the other candidates combined. And look, I don't disagree what he's saying about Pataki, really. What is the guy doing in the race? Most people don't even know who he is. He's poking at Trump specifically for the reason of using Trump's fire to try and light his own. Trump can't resist responding. I understand that, and it goes against what he said he was going to do. But I think Pataki's just poking him to try and catch some of the light.
All right, Franco, last word to you. Do you think the entire field is going to be going after Donald Trump in this debate?
Well, I think they have no choice but to. As Mark said, it's a typical strategy to try to elevate your own numbers by going after the elephant or the gorilla in the room. But, I think that the Pataki-Trump fight is just another one of the ugly fights that we're going to continue to see. And it's shameful. As I said last week on this network, Donald Trump not only has no business in this race, but people keep saying that he's changing the conversation. And
well, he is, Franco. He has changed the conversation.
Yes, you're right. But what is he changing it to? He's changing it to the ugly side of American politics that, frankly, it's not going to last.
Well, it's working for him, at least now. We'll talk a little bit more with our roundtable coming right back. After this, we're going to talk about why President Obama has decided not to stay at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, and much more.
And back for our roundtable on this Monday, President of Citizens for Self-Governance attorney Mark Meckler and Democratic media strategist Franco Ripple. Thanks so much for sticking around, guys. Things are heating up for Wednesday's big debate. But Franco, which issue do you think will dominate the debate floor this time around? So we've been talking about immigration. Will it be pro-life? Assisted suicide. We just talked about California may pass that into law. Planned Parenthood funding, the economy, ISIS, global security. What do you think?
Donald Trump, probably Donald Trump. Also with a.
Do you really think, Franco? Do you really think that they're going to allow that to happen? The moderators just trying to make it about one personality as opposed to being about the issues?
Well, what I think is going to happen is that there's going to be a little bit of all of those issues that you mentioned, broadly grouped into categories like the economy and foreign affairs. But each of the candidates will take their shot. Some candidates being new to the debate stage, such as Carly Fiorina, will take their shots at Donald Trump. But what I can tell you we're not going to hear is anything that really matters to, John and Mary in Ohio, the average American. Good jobs, good wages. How are they going to send their kids to college in an affordable way? We're not going to hear that. We are going to hear about Planned Parenthood. We're going to hear about, emails and all this stuff that if you really ask people in the heartland of America, does not matter to them.
All right, Mark, what do you think, if it's going to be all those things, who do you think is the best candidate to benefit from that, other than Trump, perhaps?
Well, first of all, I disagree with Franco because I know one of the moderators very well. I know Hugh Hewitt very well. He's a very serious guy. He's not going to allow this thing to spiral out of control. He's one of the greatest foreign policy experts in America. You're going to hear about the Middle East. You're going to hear about the threats to Europe. You're going to hear about ISIS, and they're going to get into details or they're not going to get away with it. Hugh is also really strong on the military in general. He's going to ask about military budgets and funding. You're going to hear about continuing resolution, sequester. You're going to hear a lot about the economy. He's very strong on the economy. I think this debate is going to be much more substantive than the first debate and much less fluff.
Who do you think stands to lose the most?
Well, yeah, always the front runner stands to lose the most. I also think Carly Fiorina, she's right there on the edge. She's either going to have to shine hard in this debate, really stand out like she did in the first one, or she's going to get bumped off the main playing field.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against her, though. She's been pretty good with those retorts. Let's change gears a little bit. Talk about the Waldorf Astoria in New York. For years, it has long been the place where heads of state, when they come to New York for the UN General Assembly, that's where they stay. And for other reasons, so much so that it was even made popular in film. Take a look. One of my favorite fictional heads of state, King Jaffe Joffer from Coming to America in 1998. But
love that movie.
To get serious, President Obama will not be staying in the Waldorf Astoria when he comes to New York for the UN General Assembly because it's now owned by Chinese. Mark, when you look at this is concerning because we have the Chinese hackers essentially reaching into the United States and being able to affect where the leader of the free world is able to stay in his own country. Do you think this is, though, maybe a symbolic move by the president to send a message to China, or do you think the threat is real?
I think the threat is real. I just think it's the first time I've seen President Obama address it realistically. I do agree he shouldn't stay at this hotel. I think it was a good move on his part. National security and the security of our communications of our president really matter. And so I think it's an intelligent move. I'm glad to see him make the move.
Franco, what do you think?
Well, I think it's also an intelligent move. It's frankly a precursor to what's to come. I know certainly in my lifetime, in all of our lifetimes, we're going to see an exponential increase in the amount of cyber attacks, largely coming from places like China and Russia. I won't call them hostile, but they're certainly not always party to American interests. The hotel is Chinese owned. It's not actually Chinese run. There's a contract by Hilton Worldwide to manage it for the next 100 years. Does that mean that it's going to be completely secure as opposed to some others? I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, would that make you feel any better? I don't think it would make me feel any better.
No, not necessarily. And that's certainly not to say anything about, Hilton or about the hotel itself. But, the call is not necessarily just the president's. The Secret Service, the protective detail, all of the folks who make those decisions probably know a little bit more than we do, open source information, and probably are making the right call.
I think Donald Trump might bring this up during the debate. He always talks about China. Anyway, this just in, maybe you haven't heard, but NBC has just named Donald Trump's replacement as host of Celebrity Apprentice. This is a big deal, guys. He's back. Do it, John.
I can't. I wouldn't do it justice.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mark.
Oh, boy.
This is a really important question. Does he have what it takes?
30 seconds left, gentlemen.
Having lived through Arnold Schwarzenegger as a two-term governor of California, I predict his tenure on The Apprentice will be just as disastrous.
All right, last word to you, Franco. Real quick.
I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a showman, much like Donald Trump, but he's not as big of a blowhard, so I think he'll do a great job.
Fair enough.
All right, guys.
I'll be watching. I'll tune in.
Yeah, I think you will. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Donald Trump says he can win the Latino vote, but do voters think he can? Coming up next on Newsmax Now, an update on where the GOP candidates stand heading into Wednesday's big debate. And on the Democratic side, will the Sanders surge continue? How the self-described socialist may be giving Clinton a run for her money.